Wait, who wants the intro? Is it me?
No, you're like the MC, right? You can just do it.
I got basically I got last episode wrong actually. It was I put episode 19, but it's actually 20. So today is 21. So we made it to our 21st birthday, guys. Episode 21. We've made it officially. So I think again we say that every episode. So we just want to thank you guys who are tuning in, listening in. Thank you very, very, we really appreciate it as well. So today, we've got an official sponsor. It's the Pure Autonomy supplement range, sponsored by our kid, Nate, over here. Nate, do you want to speak on a bit more?
Yeah, so as some of you already know, we have two supplements now coming out of the Autonomy range, which is the pure 100% ISO whey protein, chocolate brownie flavored, and then a pre-workout that is packed full of caffeine, beta-alanine, and taurine, which are the main ingredients for getting a really good pre-workout to separate that from a poor performing workout to a high performing workout. Jeez. And there's no discount. You just need to get it. Support white businesses, please.
Support South Asian businesses. There we go. Yeah. So we've got Asda, George, shout out to Nate there as well. He's rocking it. You guys can't see the video right now, but he's rocking the top once again. And then we've also got his Pure Autonomy supplement range. So we're excited to try that out, and I can rate it on Instagram for you guys as well. As you know, I am a protein powder connoisseur. So I should be rating that very, very soon. Once I do get that delivered, and I should be paying for it, Nate. So
I'll be waiting for that vegan version. You hook me up when that shit comes.
And when a year later.
yeah. I'll be here. I'll be waiting. If it's demand, you got to solve the problem, right? So
what I'll just do for you is I'll just chop up some Linda McCartney sausages and grate them into fine powder, and then just add some cocoa powder with it. And I think that's probably how they make awesome supplements. It's that thick. It's the same stuff.
Can we talk about awesome supplements a bit more? Because I found them quite overrated. I know last year everyone was loving awesome supplements. I thought they were slightly overrated. What do you guys think of it? Favorite vegan protein powders? I know this is going off topic right now, but what's your favorite one?
I actually really like the one I said a few episodes ago. It's called Better You.
Better You,
yeah. Pea and oats protein. It tastes really nice, like kind of naturally flavored. But when I was living in Australia, then it was Prana. It was a really good brand. So
yeah, and
you Aussies out there, go and try it out.
Yeah, we've got plenty of Australian listeners, so they should be getting this.
That's what I'm talking about, right? So yeah.
And I do like the awesome supplements. I think it's an acquired taste. It's just one of those where it's thick as hell. It's not a protein powder. It's like a mousse. And I think if you change it from like what it actually is, which is supposed to be like a protein powder drink, it just ends up being like mud. It's like a face mask. No, those mud face masks.
It's mud. There you go. You said it correctly. It's mud. That's what it is.
What's it called? The muscle mousse. Did you remember that?
Exact same as that. It has the same thickness of that.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah. But I don't mind it at all. I think I haven't tried many because I just don't really rate vegan stuff anyway. But I did try it and it was all right for what you do. I mean, it depends on what you're going to use it for. I wouldn't put it in oats. It's not one of those oat things. It would just make oats just concrete. If you use a decent amount, like 30 to 60 grams or whatever. But if you're having it like as a shake in something, I think it's pretty decent as a base. But outside of that, it's like get some good damn whey, to be honest.
I mean, I recommended it purely because it has actually a decent amount of protein in there. I think per serving. So I do recommend it, but I tried it myself and I've actually made a mistake what Nate just said with you put it into oats and then suddenly it's like a slab of concrete and mud combined, and then you're trying to eat that and then it just doesn't work.
Depends on what you like though, texture wise.
Yeah, it's true, but I also don't like the texture because I'm so used to like the normal whey stuff, right?
Yeah.
So when you have like a mud, you're just thinking, oh my god, what is this
maybe
stuff?
if you really want to make like desserts, right, you can get creative with some desserts to make like what's it called, mud cake or something, and you actually
mud cake.
Yeah, isn't it called that? Mud cake. So one ingredient and water, there you go. So,
yeah, that's true. PhD have a really good one with
on top of it,
Yeah, that's true. But PhD one, the PhD protein powder with the moussey one, I forgot what it's called now.
Yeah.
They're quite good as well, actually. But they're like I put it on notes sometimes, and it's the exact same thing. It's just it tastes a bit better than, let's say, the Awesome Supplements one. But then again, my favorite vegan one would be probably, I'd say, Ghost.
Ghost is good.
Ghost one is quite nice. Just because, again, most vegan protein powders, their taste is horrible. That one is slightly different, so I give them that. I don't know, I've not tried your one, Emily, so I could be wrong. That could be like the elite of the elite. So, Australian listeners, go check it out and then tag us, give us a review. We want an exact review out of 10. Like, I don't want to hear like 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, exact point decimal to it. So today, guys, we are going to be discussing sleep. And obviously, with lockdown over the last like over 12 months now, there's been, I saw a study actually towards the end of last year that said we slept an extra 2 hours. Obviously, with commuting now, with it's from Whoop actually. They kind of they had this article out about like how many hours are we actually sleeping since lockdown and stuff. But there's still people struggling with sleep purely because we spoke about stress and burnout in a couple of episodes ago, where people are actually working for a lot longer now. They're working till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or whatever, and then obviously naturally they want to unwind, so they watch Netflix till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then it's a cycle once again, right? So let's dive deep into sleep, and what have you seen over the past year with your clients? Has it got better? Has it got worse? Has it been stagnant? And what are some of the key tips that we can also give them in this episode? Let's start with you, Em.
Yeah. Actually, I never do the Netflix flick binges, but I did it last night and the night before. And like,
wait. What were you watching on Netflix? Let's discuss that first.
The most horrible program. I never watched like good, because the thing is, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna watch something shit, and then I'm watching, and I'm like, fuck, now I gotta finish. It's like reality shows, right? It's Love Blind.
Oh, I've seen that last year. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't
Love
watch
Blind.
Netflix, but
Mate, I told you about this show. Do you remember? I told you about the show.
Is this when they go into the
pods.
Yeah, the pods? Yeah. Priyanka was watching this.
Yeah. Priyanka used to mention that check-in.
I think basically I watched the whole thing in 2 nights.
Oh wow!
And they're like 55 minutes long episodes. So, and like I'm in this little cave. It's the perfect temperature. We're gonna talk probably all about it, like how to set up your room, right? But it's like the perfect temperature. It's nice and cool. It's really dark and it's quiet as fuck. And here I am wasting time on good sleep, watching something that just is. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I was like pressing forward. Like I don't actually watch things properly. I'm like, okay, forward, can skip this part. So yeah. But what I've seen with my clients is I think I've seen an improvement, if I'm going to be honest. Some people are still struggling, but I've seen in my clients there's been an improvement, but it's because I'm pushing that. Like I've been pushing the improvement of sleep because it's almost been like, you're given this opportunity, let's make the most out of it, and then let's start working on new habits, and let's working on routines, because now it's like you are at home, you can start implementing boundaries, rules that you stick with, and then so it's been a year of most people trying to work out good routines, and I see the improvement, which obviously is going to correlate with how they feel, and then the rate of weight loss, and how it's just going to correlate to everything. So yeah, at least from my ends, it's been pretty much an improvement all around.
How about you personally? Do you feel like over the course of the year things have changed with lockdown? Or I guess we're also quite different in a way where I think we're regimented as individuals anyway, so things may have not changed too much for us anyway. But do you feel like, because you've been traveling as well, you've gone from back to Sweden, come here, back and forth, have you found it a big difference?
Well, since I mentioned that last time about how I recognized that sleep was the most important thing I needed to solve in my life, it's always kind of the thing that I always think like, oh, I need to sleep at this point, like I need to sleep this many hours. Yeah, but I mean now I tend to actually wake up on my own at around between 5:30, 6:30, depends on when I go to bed. So like because I've worked on that for so long, it kind of happens naturally. Like even this morning, even though I went to bed probably at midnight, I woke up and it was 6:15, and I was planning on waking up a little bit later, but so it happens. So my sleep is pretty good. It's just these last 2 nights when I've been a dick, you know. Otherwise, like I like to go to bed early. I get tired naturally around 8, if I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, so I could probably go to bed around like 8:30, 9:30 sometimes. Nah, probably that around that time. So I sleep a decent amount of hours, like probably 8 hours, which is like I think 7:45 is somewhere where I think it's my prime, because I tend to wake up around like 7:45 to 8:15 hours. That's about my natural, if I don't put an alarm on. So, and I give myself that most nights.
That's
Pretty
cool.
solid.
Yeah.
I found probably an opposite view from a client point of view this over the last year. I think with the rise in people not really knowing and the uncertainty, people are like glued more to the things that are kind of making them feel better, and that is normally Netflix and the other things that kind of people just watch because there's no reason to get up in the morning or there's no reason to go to bed earlier. So I found a lot of purpose related issues when it came to staying up later, and there's no reason not to. Zoom calls ended up being later because people just wanted to speak to other people. It ended up people talking to a couple of people in the evenings, and they just like kind of ruined their routines. But I think for the most part, that people that did actually go to continue working during this time period, then those ones kind of they've been regulated by that work anyway. But those that kind of moved away from work, they've kind of probably found that their routine's gone less, and it's obviously loss of purpose and loss of kind of drive to wake up in the morning. Like you don't have a reason to wake up in the morning if you don't have a job and you're on furlough, so therefore you're more inclined to stay up in the middle of the night because you don't need to wake up at X amount of time in the morning. So I found that mostly being quite difficult for clients, and that can then result in eating more in the evenings and then staying up later, which creates more hunger. And that kind of correlates good with the recent research that they've seen with during COVID, which was that they've seen that like two-thirds of the population have reported that they've been over-consuming food during lockdown and over-consuming or eating more than they would normally eat. And whilst sleep may be a massive factor in that, I think the times that people stay awake for is always going to be a large factor in how much people eat. There's no, we'll know from clients, like the clients that actually go to bed at 10 are not the ones that snack in the evenings. It's the ones that go, for the majority, the ones that are actually going to bed at 11 or 12, that dangerous zone where you're at 10 p.m. at night and you're on your second episode of whatever. That's the bit where you're like, oh, do we watch the next one? And then you're kind of hungry, but then you realize that you can't go to bed hungry. So therefore then you eat something because you're not supposed to be up in the first place. But that's what I found for the most part. What about you, Kim?
It's a mixed bag. So I think the ones who are very like diligent at what they want to kind of get out of the day, I still found them really focused on, okay, I need to get my routine in place. And the people who obviously were still working, I'm not, they're still like, I've got work tomorrow, I've got to wake up at this time, I've got this deadline to meet. So they're still diligent, but at the same time, there's still a case of people are working more at times as well. So they're working past 9 o'clock. Most time back in the day, before COVID, you'd have a cutoff period, right? Like you'd be in the office till 6, and then you'd go straight to the gym or you'd go straight home or whatever. Now they're still working till a bit longer. So they're kind of, my relaxation time is either Netflix or it's going to go towards food, right? So for a lot of people, they want to kind of, food is their kind of crux to, I need to relax and let me have a bit of this instead. So I've seen it's been a mixed bag for me. Like the clients who, like I said, who are still quite busy on a day-to-day basis, they're still all good. I find them okay with just having a routine in place. And they know exactly, look, I'm not going to have electronics by this time. I'm going to do this. This is my routine before bed. And then they have a routine when they do wake up as well. Whereas, as you mentioned, like people with furlough, what's the purpose of actually, firstly, sleeping early? And also, what's the purpose of, waking up or, staying up really, really late either? So for me, it's been a mixed bag. I've seen overall, if I'd say like in percentage-wise improvement, I'll still say 60-40. A lot of people have still, I'd say, improved, but there's still an element like one week it could tip over and be like 60% have just been worse that week. So it's also, very, very difficult to kind of gauge a number on it, but I'd say it's a tipping balance between like on a week to week basis. Because obviously, things are ever changing. We've had 3 lockdowns in this country. We've had, for example, the furlough scheme's went from like last December to March. Now it's gone up to September. So we don't actually know what's going to happen even between now and September. Obviously they're mentioning the vaccinations and they're mentioning all of that, but then for example, things could still spike up and they could still shut down again. And then that could impact people's jobs, could impact people's, everything going forward. So then again, does that impact their sleep? Stress management is another aspect towards, sleep. And we can probably dive deep into that as well, in a couple of minutes. But yeah, I'd probably say for me, it's been a mixed bag with this one. I wouldn't say it's like one or the other just yet.
Yeah.
How do we get good sleep then?
Yes, good, massive question, isn't it? I'd say firstly, like just going for the routine, actually having a routine on a day-to-day basis, like knowing when you're going to go to sleep, like actually have a set time when you're going to go to sleep, and actually have that routine. Whether it's because a lot of people sometimes do this where okay, I'm going to try to sleep at 10:30, but then they don't sleep till 10:30, or they don't sleep at 10:30, then they sleep at 12. The next day they sleep, oh, I'm a bit tired, I'll go sleep at 9:50 instead. It's ever changing, so there's no consistency. It's like similar to what we do with the diet, right? It's like don't shoot to 2000 one day and then shoot 2000 the day after and then go to 3000 the day after that. It's like trying to find like the medium ground for yourself. For some people, for me it's 10:30 usually, like, so I'll probably sleep later than most of you guys here, but for me I find 10:30 is my sweet spot, and I always tend to wake up at 7. That's like my sweet spot of all Nathan's seen it, even in America, like I'll always wake up, he'd wake up an hour early, I'd still be like in bed at 7 and I wake up at that point. So it's always been that consistency for me. So I'd probably start off with having a routine in place which will allow you to be consistent over time.
Yeah, you don't need to have a dead on time. You just need to. I found that when I had just a time to go to, when I was trying to set this the first time I did it, I found out having a set rigid time was not helpful, but having a plus or minus of 30 minutes was very, very useful. And then secondly to that is that don't be afraid to actually go back to basics of reminding yourself by using an alarm. Like no one's going to pick you up off the sofa and put yourself in bed apart from yourself. So you need a reminder when it's all so easy just to stay on the sofa. So I found that especially last year when I was with my parents' house and I was just like not doing that much, apart from just working, sleeping, going to work. But then I would get caught up and watch TV or chat to Bianca or play Xbox or whatever it was. And if I didn't set myself an alarm for the time I needed to get off my phone or the time I needed to go to bed or half an hour before I needed to go to bed, I didn't know what it meant to kind of prepare for half an hour to get ready for bed. And going back to that conscious competence of actually setting an alarm is always a safe bet. Like it reminds you, and you are trying to learn a new skill, which is go to bed earlier and break habits. And you're not going to do it just by saying, oh yeah, I really want to do it, and then just waiting for someone else to pick yourself up and go to bed. So conscious competence is key. Set an alarm. Don't be afraid to like kind of go back to super basics, which is basics will always win. So if you have to set an alarm for 2 weeks to get yourself accustomed to going to bed or what it feels like to set an alarm, and then when the alarm goes off at 9:45 and get into that pattern of like, okay, the alarm's gone off, what do I do now? Boom, boom, boom. And you do that for 7 to 14 days. You won't need an alarm for week number 3. You won't need an alarm for week number 4. It'll just happen. But if you don't set that trigger, then you're not going to get up and it's not going to happen. It's just going to be one of those like, I'd like to go to bed, but I'd never do.
Yeah. And I think, what we're really talking about here is like actually working with your circadian rhythm, which is like your wake sleep clock, right? Because essentially we're all run by hormones, and if we're giving it like a different dose of something every day, it's just going to be confused and it's going to not work with you, it's going to work against you, which is how it relates to hunger hormones and not feeling satiated and stuff like that. So you essentially doing yourself the best favor by actually working with the sleep patterns, because it will feed into how you operate the next day and then the next day. So yeah. So what else?
I think another one could be obviously electronics, right? Like the rise of electronics right now, from a viewpoint, if you're still on Zoom till late at night, you're still going to be triggered by whatever. It could be a conversation, it could be anything right now. I know, for example, a lot of people maybe listen to this right now are using Clubhouse, right? The app. And that's still triggering in its sense, because it's a conversation. It could be a deep conversation. You listen to that like at 11 o'clock at night, and by the way, Clubhouse doesn't have like, if you're in a room, it could still go on for 3 hours. It doesn't have an endpoint. So unless someone announces, like a moderator or whatever, they announce like, hey, we're going to have an endpoint at this certain time. I've been in rooms where it's been like 3 hours long. And I'm like, holy crap, is that like, especially weekends, because you're just like, it's a great conversation with someone about, there's one the other week about an Olympian who was on it discussing like mindset secrets or whatever, and I was like, this is quite cool. Went on for about 2.5 hours. So these are the things like now where, you know, there's going to be new apps, there's going to be new things that will want us to kind of keep us busy, or, you know, because Clubhouse, you know, they came out at the right time, early Jan, everyone started, you know, jumping on the bandwagon for it. And it makes sense because everyone's at home, so everyone's loving it. So little things like that, just limiting, you know, electronics exposure potentially after a certain time period. So, you know, what Nathan said about having an alarm clock, you could have an alarm clock just for that, and saying, let it go off, and you're like, I'm not going to be using this now, time for me to turn off like my you know, apps and go into like night mode, you know, no, do not disturb. I think, you know, electronics is probably a big one right now, purely because I actually think people are using their phone a lot more than ever now.
Yeah, usage is up by that, I think 70% or whatnot, which is crazy. The notifications and like the spinning plates that happen in your head when you are trying to do multiple things. Like a lot of people that come to work with us, like say, okay, I want to make sure that I'm giving the best to my family, the best to people that are around me in the evenings, like especially kids. But you're never going to be able to do that if like you're half watching something on your phone, or half looking at your phone and half looking at the kids, and then they're like, okay, I struggle to really engage, or I struggle to really like you know, provide, or, you know, get a sense of fulfillment out of the thing I'm doing. And normally it always comes down to the fact is that they're not doing one single thing at a time. And if you can do a singular thing at a time, you're going to feel very, very good about that specific thing, and you're going to be able to focus. You can't get into flow state with anything, even if you enjoy it, when you've got something going off in your pocket, or you've got something that's in your hand. And the level of conversation, even just try it, like the level of conversation that you have when you have your phone in your hand versus your phone is on charge in the other room is completely different. The level of concentration you have on that one single thing is different when your phone's not in notification mode, or it is. And these are all options that we have. Like, you know, I was skeptical at the beginning of turning notifications off. I was skeptical of not using my phone in the morning. I was skeptical of putting a boundary in place in the evening with it. And guess what happened? No one rang me. Like, no one wanted me enough at those times to want or need me to kind of utilize my phone. For most people, if an emergency actually happens that they need to get in contact you, they will ring you. They will not text you, oh my God, like, you know, your son's gone into hospital. No one's going to text you that. You know, it's going to be a phone call, which means that you can keep phone calls on and have it linked up to your Alexa or whatever you've got in your house. And then at the same time is that you can put your phone on charge in another room without notifications, and actually you'll get much better time and fulfillment out of your day when you're not divided with attention. It's like the same with work. When you're trying to do 20 different things at the same time, and you're a guy who's got a multitude of tasks, to-do lists, or a person with loads of to-do lists, you never really focus on one thing, because you focus on, oh, I just do this, a bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You feel way more overwhelmed than actually what would happen if you just said, I'm going to do this, knock it off. I'm going to do this, knock it off. And the people that are overwhelmed are the ones that actually are trying to spin more plates when they don't really need to. It's just a wanting to get it all done at the same time mentality, which is all comes down to order and priorities and stacking it on top of each other and do them in the right order. So for phone usage, as much as it may sound militant, as much as it sounds like you're not having any fun, it's like you have to recognize the volatility of what happens when notifications do push through. Like, there's so much research on like when notifications come through, people's blood pressure raises up, people's it's a trigger mechanism. It's the same as Pavlov's dogs. Like when a notification comes through, is watch what your hand does. Your hand goes over to it, or your eyes go over to it, or you stop your conversation when your notifications come through. Like, we've all been conditioned to have this with these phone things that we're all utilizing for business, for pleasure, for greatness, for good, for worse. But you have to control it before it controls you. And having notifications, having phone boundaries in the morning and the evening is going to give you a better life outside of the internet world. And we have to remember that is the only world that we live in. The internet world is fantastic, but we all still come back to the day-to-day where we're all feeling shit because we're looking on Instagram for too long. Yep. So if you want to plug into your life and plug into your family around you and have great conversations, you can't do that well enough or at all when you do have these phones, you know, pinging in the background or going off in your hand. That would be my opinion anyway.
Yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made, to take off everything. Like everything. I don't even know if people can call me. Like, honestly, I don't know what I've done. If no one
You
wants
got
to
you got complete monk mode, eh?
literally. So then I put my phone on flight mode in the evening, and it's the same. I mean, I think it's going to be different. I actually spoke to my auntie about this the other day, because I'm a single girl. I don't have kids, you know. So in my head, it's like, yeah, if someone's hurt, it's not like I'm not going to be able to be there and save them. But I spoke to her like, oh, I do this because of that. Like, I don't want people to reach me. If they died, I wouldn't be able to do anything anyway. That's kind of like how I think. But then she actually said, like, you know, yeah. And I'll go back. So I guess it's a bit private, but when my granddad died in a car accident, you know, she didn't pick up the phone when my grandma rang her in the evening. So, and that, I guess, haunts her. She's like, now I have to keep my phone on just in case, you know. So I guess it goes both ways, but again, that goes to the phone call, not necessarily having notifications. But it's just whatever works for you and how you feel comfortable. But just with as Nathan said, like, you know, it's the notification that actually steals your time and your consciousness, and that's what's it gives you the unfulfilled feelings, right? A phone call from someone that you love is like, actually, that gives you something, even if it is in the evening. So like, keep your phones on. You don't have to keep them on flight mode. Just make sure that nothing will like bother you and ping. And so yeah, but
The reason why, and then there's also one of the things I realized actually, the more we have this conversation, the reason why I reckon why more people are working right now, a lot more, is because of their phone. Like, you know, back in the, let's say, take away COVID times, I think people, you know, took away their phones in a different manner. They just didn't use it as much. Whereas now, it's so close to you, and you, like Nathan said, if there's a notification ping, you know, iPhone has that ping sound or whatever. If you have that going on, and you know, for example, I've taken away WhatsApp notifications for the last like 3 years, Instagram notifications for the last 3 years. I don't have that unless I go into the app. That's when I know I've got messages or whatever. But people to this day still have that going on, right? They still have that. It'll just be ping, 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 and then suddenly you're working from home. That's why your work is probably delayed, because you just keep delaying, and then you're on your phone a lot more. So you think I'm busy, but then you just spent an hour on your phone.
Yeah.
Right.
And then alongside that, it's the obligatory finish work at 6:30 p.m. But then you're cooking dinner, and then you scroll through your emails, and then you've got something there, and you feel obliged to go and action it because you've seen it. And especially if you work in the corporate world where that is kind of the norm, right? But if you technically cocked off at 6:30 like you were supposed to, and you took the phone away like 10 years ago, you left the laptop at work or the computer at work and you stepped away from the desk, and then you came home, you wouldn't be able to respond to that email, and you weren't going to get to it anyway. And it's just because you've seen it, you feel obliged to go and do something about it, as opposed to either not checking your emails after 6:30. That's obviously a key fundamental for most people. And then the other alternative is understand that it's okay to get something and not do anything about it until tomorrow, because it was after your boundary. Like, your work is not 8 till 6 or 8 till 6:30. Even from a business perspective, like if we run our own businesses, like if we were to answer all the emails and all the messages after or any time that they came in, we'd all be overworked or overwhelmed and just have no work to life balance. But it's that obliged feeling that everyone feels because they've seen it, that they struggle with to kind of separate. And it's like, oh, well, I've seen it now, or they know that I've seen it, or I've went up on a messenger and they're on it, so I feel like I have to be on it. And you see like Teams, it has the people who are online, and then you see the other person that sent you the messages online. So therefore you feel like, oh, I have to go and do it now because they've done it. And then the next minute you work until 8 p.m. at night, and then you sacrificed your evening time just because you didn't have the discipline to not go on it after work.
Can we talk about like phone hygiene? I guess you can call phone hygiene, or just essentially boundaries, because boundaries affect your sleep if you think about it, right? Like you just spoke about it there. Like, for example, if you're working till 8 o'clock, you're still triggered by that. That could still be triggering you till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, right? And that's raises stress levels, that raises everything. And I think we can start a couple of quick tips, right? So my one would be take away notifications off your phone. You know, I think, you know, I know they're important to a large extent, like for example, email notifications, but like, do you really need them? You're still going to be an email between 8 and 6 the following day, right? You're still using a laptop. Do you really need it on your phone? Because what will happen anyway between that? Like, is there a massive emergency? Will you get fired between 6 and 10 at night if you don't email it, or if you don't respond to it?
Can't you press like boomerang for the whole like you can post your inbox maybe for X amount of time, right? So they won't.
Yeah, so I used to do that quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best thing that I also done is taking, I know that you can probably only do this in WhatsApp, but actually take away the whole seen message. I don't know if you've seen my message. You can't know if I've seen yours. And that also takes away the whole thing. Oh, now he's seen it, or I've seen it now, so I need to respond. It's like, I don't have to, because, I will respond when I have the time. I will respond when when it's appropriate. So that's, for me, it was a big one as well.
Yeah, I've taken that away. I think Instagram notifications as well, completely taken away. I think most app notifications I don't really have, unless I go into the app. That's when I get like not necessarily a notification. It just says you got a message, or you got like for example, when you like or whatever, that's when you kind of have a look at it. Otherwise, imagine that, like, you get constantly like a DM from Instagram, or you get you post something, you get likes for it. Imagine you keep getting that notification. I think you just wouldn't stop. You wouldn't do anything apart from just like keep looking at that, and
Well,
you look at your phone.
That's the thing we hit, like when where we used to work, we used to have a team meeting. There's like 12 of us, right? And you could tell the ones that were monitoring their health, because they'd be on the Zoom call. We don't mute things at that point. Like, we're not professional like that. Everyone was on like this, and if someone farted, you could hear it, type of thing. Yeah. And you'd just hear people's phone WhatsApps on the laptop go dun 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 dun, and you're like, oh, and that's why you're the person that's complaining about being overwhelmed, or that's why you're not as productive as the rest of us, or oh wow, that's why you're struggling to do X, Y, and Z. And it's because they're on a team meeting and they can't focus on the team meeting because they've got these pinging in the background. And whether it's personal, whether it's professional, whether it's whatever it's supposed to be, is that you had a meeting, and if you were in an office scenario, you wouldn't be bringing your phone into the office. So therefore, treat it like that. And that's the luxury of working at home, that you can do multiple things at the same time, but also it's the detriment to your mental health that you are doing multiple things at the same time, because you're creating overwhelm for yourself. It's like that whole thing of, are you really actually working very, very hard, or are you just holding a lot in your head, trying to spin a lot of different plates at the same time? And if you take away that element, and you're like, there's a reason why I've got, like, every single day now I do a to-do list in this. This is what I do: dog walk, check-ins, dog walk, this, that, the other. Every single time, strike it off, strike it off, strike it off, strike it off. It doesn't matter how insignificant that thing is. I had to do that census thing today to register that I lived at 31, whatever my address is. Nearly gave my address out then. That was hilarious. And then I had to go and do that, but I threw it in the bin, so I had to go and get a new one. But I had to go and do that this morning, and I wrote that in. And like, you have to write those things in, and then you remember and you strike it off. And by striking it off, you get that clarity of mind, saying, okay, that's out of the door now. I don't need to worry about that.
And it gives you the same sense of, like, this is all about getting dopamine hits anyway. It gives you some dopamine hit every time you tick something off. And then you can kind of steal from the thing that you get from your Instagram pinging by actually just doing more things and tick them off your list. It's the same response inside your brain to feel good. So so you get more productive.
Yeah, I think that's a issue with a lot of people now. I think people don't realize how hard it is to work from home, because back in the day, before, I remember everyone was like, oh my god, you're so lucky, you work from home, it must be so good. I'm like, it is good, don't get me wrong, I love working from home. I wouldn't trade it for anything else at the moment, but it also requires discipline. And again, there's no rule book for working from home for most people, right? There's a rule book of, like, working from office, you've got these hours. When you're working from home, you've got to create those hours for yourself. You've got to be like, okay, I'm not going to work past this specific time. I'm going to do this at this specific time. I'm big on that checklist nowadays. Like, I got my notes section on my laptop, and I do it like pretty much every day, where I'm like, okay, Wednesday, I've got this going on. Once it's done, tick it off, and then that's it, or just swipe it. And it just gives you clarity, but also allows you to be like, okay, I've done this to this day. Another tip for that, probably just not overwhelm it. Don't put loads and loads of different things. For example, Nathan's got dog walk, and it's pretty much every single day that will be in the list. To try and keep like the basics and the routines in there, because it's just habit stacking over time as well.
You're not putting like, oh yeah, now I go for a drink of water, or now I go for a poo, or that stuff like that. Well, I've seen that before. I've seen people write that in check-ins, by the way.
Yeah,
where they're like, write down your daily routine, and then you're like, Oh, on the other end of the spectrum is, oh, that's why you get the fuck it all or nothing mentality, because you said that you were going to go for the toilet at 11, 5 past 11, but then your meeting overran, and then you're like, well, fuck it, the rest of my day's gone now if I can't have my shit and my bottle of water at 11:05. And then you're like, okay, well, those boundaries that you create are too strict. And it's with anything, like even with dieting, relating it back to dieting, like the long-term research is really fucking clear, and this is for life as well, is that you need flexible constraints, which is boundaries, but to be flexible with them so you can move within them. So like when I said before about the whole don't have your bedtime at like 10, have a plus or minus of 30 minutes, that's a flexible constraint, not a rigid constraint. Like if you're having your phone usage, be flexible with that. So like if it is like I get off my phone at 8 or between 8 and 8:30, I'll be able to do that. Same with your to-do list every single day. Don't jam pack it full every 15 minutes. Give yourself a wiggle room where I know the dog walk is an hour, but if the bridge closes and the swing bridge goes, I have to wait there for 10 minutes and then come back over. And I'm not going to start work for another 10 to 15 minutes after that. But if I was to set my constraints, like I need to start work at 11, then everything else or my mindset just becomes, oh shit, I'm 15 minutes behind. And then everything else from there gets shorter and I get worse as I go along because I'm trying to rush everything. And then you hit that fuck it button because you're like, I haven't done what I'm supposed to do today. And it was a failure because I missed 15 minutes of the dog walk. And then you start hating Luna because of that. So, but you have to have those flexible constraints of like, be reasonable with what you can do in a day. And some people need to start with have 5 things in their to-do list a day. Some people like me, I have like 10 of things, but I do start work at 6 and finish at 7. So that's 10 things over a 12, 13 hour day. It's not that many. It's 1 an hour.
Okay. But you're also quite precise with like how you're going to get it done in an hour. So some people, like for example, you're also at a slightly higher level of like, I'm not going to use notifications. I'm not going to go on Instagram at this particular time. A lot of people are like, they could still be like, oh, I've got this notification. Let me do this. Let me do that. And that hour turns into, I haven't done that in that hour. I'm going to now stretch it out over. And then 3 hours later, I still haven't done that task. I've got another 5 things piling up to me. Right.
Yeah.
So that's also another thing where, but I think it's a case of like, you also learn from that kind of situation. But that's again, like you're completely like you could do 10 tasks in a day, because I know how you probably would work. It's a completely different spot. But I think most people can learn from that, truth be told. Like, just the basics of taking away notifications and you will be so much more productive.
But I only ever got to that point because I was able to do something like that. Like I never would be able to do 10 things in a day. I'd never be able to do a deep work block from 7 a.m. till 9 or 11. I basically do deep work from 7:30 till 11 every single day. But I wouldn't do that. Or the days that I do go on my phone in the morning when I'm always a human, and sometimes I do go in it and check out Insta or whatever it is. They're the days that I don't get much done, and they're 2 tasks for 2.5 hours as opposed to probably 3 or 4. And that's like detriment. Well, not detriment. It's a regression from what I expected of my business, and that's absolutely cool. But I know now, the more I've practiced it and the more I've failed at trying to stay off my phone, because I'm like, oh yeah, cheeky, may film a set for him for my workouts. And then by the time you film the set, you're like, oh, then I open WhatsApp and send it to him. Then I see everyone else's WhatsApp and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? All right, babes. Good morning, babes. Whatever it is, and then you start like messaging all your people. And then therefore you end up being in that cyclone of then your work gets less productive over that morning slot. And you're like, wait, what was the defining factor that allowed me not to be as productive as it was? And it's like, well, yesterday morning I had a really good headspace. I didn't want to, fucking kill anyone, and I wasn't on my phone. And today I got less done. I was on my phone more often, and I felt like I was in a really poor mental headspace today. What's the common denominator? So phone usage.
The phone, yeah. I think that's the biggest takeaway we can kind of give you guys this whole like sleep talk, because it's not just the basic ones, but it's like, if you can do something with your phone where it's just like, go 1 week without like notifications, and just, let's say if it's Instagram, let's go WhatsApp, because everyone has WhatsApp and they have loads of friends on WhatsApp. Take away notifications in your WhatsApp for a whole week. It'll feel weird because it will just be blank for a whole day, but you'll start to realize how productive you become. And then choose the hours you want to go on WhatsApp. So if it's like the afternoon, you go on it because you've got a break, cool. Then you can respond to all your messages. It'll be a game changer for yourselves. And if you can try that out, it will be, and we want to hear it as well. Actually, we want to hear this, like whether it's DMs or whether it's like your check-ins or whatever. We do want to hear this from you guys and seeing how it experiments. But I think that's pretty much it for this week's podcast, episode 21, is now locked and ready to go. We will be back next Thursday. So
Probably actually talk about sleep next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's actually dig into sleep next week. This was more like management. I think this, just to like put in a little note there, what I think Nate was talking about is like time management is irrelevant unless you manage yourself. Like it really doesn't matter if you can block out as much as you want, but if you don't manage yourself, that's bullshit. Then you're just wasting time managing your time when you're not going to pull through what you're actually going to do within the time. So yeah, that's just my finishing line.
And that's a bar, and that's where. Oh no, I save it for next week. Let me save that for next week, because that's the underpinning of like change and transformation and consistency. Is man management. Is man management. My man's got a big prop over here.
Yeah, we'll leave a cliffhanger for next week. Thank you guys for listening in.
So we'll be back for how to still improve your sleep. So part 2, we'll be back.